What's up? What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the 9 by 9 a special Saturday episode. It is Saturday, April 30th. My name is Everett DeLorme. That's Rob St. Clair, as always, joining me from Boston, Massachusetts. He's down there for the VLA. Unfortunately, we have a few less guitars behind him, but Rob, thanks for taking the time to chat this morning. This is the second time we're doing this intro because I'm an idiot and forgot to press go live. Um, so we were talking for a good few minutes, and but it's fine. We're gonna
It's
start
okay.
again.
It's a fun little informal show. Yeah, special Saturday episode only because it's just been that crazy of a week, and we didn't want to wait until Tuesday like usual to wrap up everything we saw this week. So
Yeah,
if you watched the show on Tuesday, we previewed for you all the ridiculous number of matches that were coming really just Wednesday. I had four matches going on at one time. Like I
nuts.
sent a picture to the Discord and I had three screens going with four matches. It was absurd. So two of those were the Italian men's semifinals, which were just unbelievable series, bangers all the way through. Both went to match five. And even after all that drama, both series had a little bit of everything. Sure enough, for I believe the fourth time in a row, we get Lube versus Perugia for the Italian title.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned it last time we started the show, but hey, it hasn't been since 2017 that we haven't had a Perugia versus Lube final. And I mean, at the beginning of it, it looked like we're going to have a different result, right? Trentino went up 2-0. They looked like they were rolling. And on the Modena side of things, hell, they were up 2-1, getting Leal back after the suspension. And we thought they were going to be going for a run for it, going back home with that 2-1 advantage, getting Leal back. But Perugia turned things on. Same thing in the other series. Lube really turned things on. And we're going to get, as you said, for the fourth time in a row, Perugia versus Lube. And it's really going to be the last installment of this because, as we've talked about before, Lube's budget is kind of getting blown up and they're blowing up this team. We know Simone is leaving and a few other pieces are going to be leaving as well. So this is really going to be the last time that we're going to be able to indulge in this Perugia Lube rivalry as we know it right now. And I was a little disappointed at first because I kind of wanted to see someone else, but as I thought about it some more, like it couldn't be better to see have these two teams in the finals this year.
I'm with you. I heard a lot of people in the Discord complaining about the fact that this is the same matchup that we've been seeing, but I feel more positive about it. I'm excited to see these two teams do it again, if and only if we see the full Lube Civitanova team that we haven't really seen all season long. But if it's possible for Osmani Juantorena to play, I think it really changes that series. And I think we might as well start there with Lube's comeback over Trentino. I mean, going down 6-0 and bringing that series all the way back
They
without the
look dead.
heart and soul of your team
They
is
look dead.
crazy. I proclaimed them dead on this very show. I proclaimed that series over.
Yep.
I thought it was Trentino's. I thought it was a foregone conclusion. I thought we could focus on the other series, but I could not have been more wrong. I cannot believe that Lube was able to turn this around. And if you're a Trentino fan, you've got to be just miserable about this because they had as good of an opportunity to go to the finals as you could ever have against a Lube team who was on the ropes and without one of their most important players, and they couldn't quite get it done.
Yeah. They had three opportunities to get it done, and I mean, we can jump into it a little bit, but to me, to be honest, I'm not sure if Osmani is the key to this one. And if we're gonna look at this game, for example, Lucarelli had a fantastic game. Yant had a
Yep.
banger of a game, right? And the only thing preventing them was the lukewarm play of Zaitsev. I mean, he was terminating every single ball. It just depended which team it was going
For
for.
better or for worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Eight
better
for
or for worse, he was
eight for
terminating
22 with five
every
errors.
single ball. And the only reason that they had to take off Yant is because they needed to put in Gabby Garcia on the right side for Zaitsev, and thus needing Yuri Kovar to come in to satisfy the amount of Italians having on the court, right? Because right now, if I look at it, the way Lucarelli has come on, like we really criticize him in the first two games of this series for being almost a ghost out there. He wasn't as a dynamic as he was earlier in the series with that 12 for 13 game, but he was still really really good in this one. And Yant was unreal. I mean, he went 12 for 20 overall, so he was absolutely massive. So if you can keep those two guys on, right? I don't know if you have any problems, but you need Zaitsev to at least he can't be a negative player for you like he was on Wednesday. Like he
And
really needs to be at least an average player out there.
And that's what I mean about Trentino seriously missing an opportunity here. You got Lube on a day where they were forced to play Jiri Kovar in the starting lineup, and you still couldn't beat them in those last two sets. Like, that is a massive missed opportunity. We've talked about Lube's issues with the foreigner limit a couple times this year, but it really stems from the fact that Osmani Juantorena hasn't been able to play. If he can play, then you're fine because he's Italian. He's a significant step up. If he's healthy over Jiri Kovar, then you can do whatever you want at the opposite. You can play Zaitsev or Garcia or whoever's, giving you better contributions that day. But you're right about the resurgence of Lucarelli. I think that, and then just the way that DeCecco's been running that Lube offense his last three matches has been the turning point for them. And listen to this Robert Landy Simone stat line.
Oh man. Unreal.
11 for
monster.
11 for 15. Attacking, 5 blocks, and 4 aces, including the gnarliest, clean ace to win the match at 15. Was it 15-12, 15-11? 15-11 in the fifth that I've ever seen. He took over that game and just refused to lose that series. And he is the only middle I have ever seen. Not Mazursky in his prime, not David Lee when he was one of the best in the world. No other middle I've ever seen can singularly take over a match the way that Robert Landy Simone can. He is so special, and he refused to lose this series.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you go talk about Mazursky, Russia had to move Mazursky to the right side for him to be effective. If you go back to the 2012 Olympics, right? The finals against Brazil when they were down 2-0. But in this one, DeCecco was looking for him everywhere. And we know this is DeCecco Simone connection is up there with the best of the best connections of all time. Like the Bruno Lucas connection, it can go head to head to that. There's so many plays where DeCecco is back to the net, is running the attack line, and he's just flicking 31s to Simone, who's crushing them. He was an absolute monster in this game, and you can tell that he is now the heart and soul of the team. And
yeah, he is.
I really don't know if if we're going to see him at all. He's not even swinging in warm-ups. You can tell that he's taking more of a coach's role. You can kind of see him giving some feedback, especially to Yant throughout the match. But Simone is really putting it all. You can really tell he wants to win with this team one more time before he goes back to Piacenza, right? But yeah, that stat line was absolutely massive. And on the other side, a stat line that you really have to point out is Daniele Lavia. Only 4 or 5 points on the day. He was really bad.
3 points only. 3 for 14 attacking, no blocks, no aces.
Yeah.
Just invisible.
Yeah, just nowhere to be found, and it really limited Trentino and what they were able to do. Micheletto was a little bit better. He had a little bit more life in this one than we've seen in the past two. And then, man, old man Matej Kaczynski is just the ageless wonder. He can do it all. He can do it all. Sitting there and watching the film over again on Volleymetrics, he can go down the line cross body. He can go thumb down across. He can hit the seam. If they just had another Matej Kaczynski, it would be great. But at the end of the day, the other two outsides and Lavia and Micheletto just weren't up to par in the later half of the series.
Micheletto was okay, 10 for 19 attacking, but the real problem for me for Trentino was passing. 10% perfect passing is really, really low. Serving ace to air ratio 2-19 in game 5. That's not great compared to Lube's 10-21. 10 aces as a team for Lube. They clearly won the serve and pass battle and put Trentino's offense in just consistently bad situations. They were still able to run Srećko Lisinats in the middle 18 times. 18 attempts for him is outstanding. That's really good, and that's a clear adjustment from when they weren't getting that much production out of their wings. But 3 for 14 from Lavia, having to give Kaczynski 44 attempts, that's just not a winning formula for Trentino. And although they got it to the fifth set, they went down immediately 3-0 in the fifth, and the writing was kind of on the wall at that point.
Yeah, 100%. I think at the end of the day, and I mean, I've talked about it a little throughout the season, is that Trentino's strength really is their team play, and I think we saw it a lot in this one. They weren't that great inside out, and other than Kaczynski, they weren't doing a great job, but they were doing such a good job, or a decent enough job passing and in transition to be able to activate the middles, and the middles is really running the show. I mean, you said it yourself, 18 attempts for Lisinats. That's more than Lavia and just as many as Micheletto. right? So just unreal spreading of the offense for Spertoli, but that's really all he could do. I mean, Penali came in a little bit too, and he was terrible as well, 1 for 5 out there. So really just missing the firepower. And I think today, really, or in this one, really the more talented team won. And that's exactly what we're seeing on the Lube side of things. You had 5 players in double digits in this one. And they were just spreading out that offense, and everyone's effective. And I mean, finally we've gotten to see the full potential of this Lube team. Obviously not to the same as we would have been seeing with Monterrey, but to be honest, I think the door is closed on that, and that we're not going to be seeing that anymore, probably ever.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think this is probably it for Juantorrena's Lube career. I don't see him suiting up in the finals, but just to preview the finals from the Lube perspective a little bit before we move on. If they need better play out of Ivan Zaitsev because he's 100%. Italian. If they have to play Jiri Kovar significantly as like a full-time outside hitter in this series, they have no chance. But where their matchup is the strongest is in the middle. Robert Landy Simon can feast upon whoever Perugia's second middle is for sure, and he's even got an advantageous matchup over Sebastian Solé. However, something that I've talked about before is that Solé knows Luciano De Cecco better than anyone, so he will be ready for a De Cecco-led offense better than the average middle blocker will. Still, I expect them to just run Robert Landy Simon down Perugia's throats, and I think if he can put up these sort of stat lines again, Lube has a chance. But if Zaitsev can't produce, they don't have a chance because of the foreigner things. Then to wrap it up for Trentino, now they're in a weird spot because they're still playing the Champions League finals in like 3 weeks, and they're done in Italy. So they have 3 weeks to prepare for one match against Zaxa. And it's kind of an awkward amount of time. Well, it's a really awkward amount of time. And I'm curious to see how they kind of structure that 3 weeks, if they kind of take a week off or. Yeah, right? It pretty much is.
It's the exact same thing that happened to them last year, and I mean we know what happened in that one, and I mean hey we know that Zaxa, we'll talk about a little bit. They just won their semifinal today. They're going to be moving on to the final, so they're going to be not fresher, but they're going to be on the ball. Obviously, I think it's probably a good thing for Trentino, given the fact that. I think Lavia and Micheletto at the end of it, and maybe even Spertoli too, just got tired. So maybe you could give them a chance, have a few days off, rest the bones, get back into the gym in a little bit to start prepping for Zaxa. But yeah, an interesting result in this one. I really thought Trentino was gonna take it from the beginning.
I really thought so too. Up 6-0, and to not win that series is just a enormous missed opportunity. There's no other way to say it.
This team keeps on defying. When I don't like them, they start doing good, and when we
like them, they fall apart.
Yeah. They start doing bad. All right, Rob. In the other semifinal, we had another banger. This one was a banger for multiple reasons. There was drama, there was controversy, there was suspension, there was kicking, and it all came down to this game 5. And ultimately, we just talked about the talent winning out in the Lube versus Trentino. I think the exact same thing happened in this one, especially we all expected Leal to come back and really change the series, but he came back and only played a few sets. He came back. I don't know if he got injured while he was suspended. I'm not entirely sure what happened with that. I don't know the story there, but at the end of the day, Modena just didn't have the horses to be able to run with a fully powered Perugia squad. And on this day, it wasn't even Wilfredo Leon who was the best one. Matt Anderson was simply outstanding this one, swinging a 75%, leading with 20 points. We've doubted him at times throughout this season. We've doubted them at times throughout this series. And the American boy out of Penn State comes out and completely rocks it in Game 5 of the semifinals.
20 for 27 with 3 errors. Only 40% perfect passing and an ace serve in 4 sets. That is just incredible. Yeah. And we'll almost as many attempts as Wilfredo Leon. Leon went 11 for 30. And for Anderson to go 20 for 27 and Rick Liskey pretty good, 15 for 24. But that is, if you get that level of production from all 3 of your wings, and the worst of the 3 is Wilfredo freaking Leon, you're going to win a championship like that, especially when Leon had 6 aces.
Yeah, exactly.
So only 7 errors. If he's not producing offensively, you put him back at the line, you let him rip 6 aces, and you're going to win a lot of volleyball matches that way. And I think you're absolutely right. The more talented team ended up winning here. But I want to talk about Yohandy Leal. because there's been a ton of rumor and drama that's come out from the Modena universe since the ending of this match. There's rumors about the future of the team, if Pedrini, the owner, is going to sell the team, if they're going to just blow everything up, start from scratch, if they're going to even play in the Superlega next year. I have no idea about any of that. What I have heard, though, is that Yoandi Leal refused to even play in match 5, excuse me. Kicked Dragan Travica at the end of match 1, got suspended for matches 2 and 3, came in match 4, played like garbage and got benched and was allegedly injured to some degree, and was complaining about minor knee soreness to ownership and just refused to even set foot on the court, while also apparently Namir Abdelaziz was dealing with significantly more severe injuries than Leal and completely played through them, going 14 for 34 and trying his best to put Modena on his back. Leal, I mean, I made the Ben Simmons joke in comparison to him on last week's show, but now that ends up being has pretty a lot more substance than a lot more substance than I initially thought, and that is a huge black mark on his career.
You need to be out there. You need to be out there.
Without question, especially when the entire series, the storyline has revolved around you doing something dumb and getting suspended. To do that and then not come back once you're eligible and give your team everything you had is criminally unprofessional. And I'm really curious to see if teams start to stay away from this guy because of that behavior.
Oh, 100%. I mean, hey, it's been a bad year overall for Brazilians in the Italian league, right? Unless your name is Flavio, you haven't been having a good time. But yeah, like, you need to be out there. You were brought in last year, right, from a really good Lube team to be a centerpiece on what should have been a very star-studded team, and you completely disappear like that in the semifinals. You don't even go out and play. Like, this is almost worse than Ben Simmons, right? Like, get out there. You messed up in game 1 after a big win. You really didn't need to do that. Sure, maybe you didn't get the result that you wanted. Maybe he's being a baby because Travica didn't get a suspension or anything like that. Who knows? But just a bad look for Leal overall. And ultimately, it's what killed Modena. They just did not have enough horses in this one, right?
Exactly.
And you could tell that Bruno was doing whatever he could to try to get the ball away from Namir to create some separation with him. Like, he was running his middles on 31s. He was trying that shoot set to Engapeth all the way to the outside. That really wasn't working. Like, he was trying anything he could to get some separation for Namir, and we saw Namir kind of really go after it at the beginning of the third set, and it looked like he was going to start catch on fire. I mean, he still had a pretty good stat line nonetheless, but ultimately they just didn't have the horses. Engapeth wasn't great on this day. Van Garderen was
7 times.
Yeah, like they were just keying in on him, and a lot of those times is when, like, Bruno was trying to force Engapeth too much, and it was really like he was off the net. He couldn't really run the middles. Namir, they were keying in on side. He would just shoot it to the left side for Engapeth, and it was always tight and low, like barely over the height of the tape. Just not a great performance by Bruno, and Engapeth. Really, the only one who was out there doing anything, good consistently was Namir. And at the end of the day, they just didn't have the horses. I found in the first set they really forced it down the middle. They really forced it with who's the other middle for why am I
Mazzone. Mazzone played pretty well.
Yeah, especially in the first set, they really gave it to him a lot and kind of created that separation, and that was the only set that they won. And they gave it to him early when they had that 4-point lead to be able to create those openings. But then as the game progressed, they just kind of got into that state of just giving high balls to Namir, and it just didn't end up working.
Yep, not a sustainable winning strategy. And again, I talked earlier on last week's show about the Perugia block, 15 blocks in 4 sets.
Yeah.
That is just a gigantic number. And you've got to point the reason for getting that many blocks is the fact that Yoandi Leal wasn't out there. Modena was missing a crucial dimension of their offense. And Martin Van Garderen, who I got to give a lot of credit for resurrecting his play after a terrible game 2, really played pretty well given his role later on in this series, but he's just not the threat that Yoandi Leal is, and that changed everything about how Perugia set up their block. That's another reason why Leal, I don't care if you're not 100%, get out there and play, dude. In this moment, your team needs you, even if not to produce. It's important to have him out there to create better opportunities for everybody else. And the fact that he wasn't able to do that was pretty much Modena's death blow. And
Absolutely.
Perugia took advantage. They played the matchup exactly how they were supposed to. They were good from the service line. Modena actually passed the ball surprisingly well, 30% perfect, 50% positive. But 8 aces to 19 errors for Perugia is a good ratio. And really that 15 stuff blocks was too much for Modena to overcome with a limited offense. And that was really just it.
Yeah, and that's exactly that. Like those 15 stop blocks just comes down to the fact that Modena only had 2 viable hitters out there. Sure, right. They were able to activate Stankovic and the other guys down in the middle, but it wasn't enough. They weren't a consistent threat. And I mean, the big reason that they were able to get those points is because they weren't a consistent threat, right? And they were often swinging against like 1 or no blocks or like a half block. So, I mean, overall, great job there by Perugia to fight through, to come from behind, down 2-1 in this series. I mean, I thought they looked dead, right? After they lost it the way they did in Game 3, they went down in the series 2-1 without Leal. I mean, we've talked about it. It all comes down to Leal, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of put his tail between his legs and crawled back to Brazil after this season, because that's a little embarrassing. And to be honest, I expected more of him.
Yeah, I agree, and I wouldn't, but I'll be surprised to see the same thing. Yeah. So to preview the finals a little bit before I move on and eventually wrap up the show, because I've got about 10 minutes left before I gotta start over to the gym for VLA this weekend. Perugia versus Lube. Perugia beat them twice in the regular season. Of course, it's a rematch from the last several finals. It starts on Sunday, so tomorrow. Best of 5 match series. Perugia's the 1 seed. They'll play, I think, games 1, 3, and 5 at home. We already talked about it a little bit with, I think, Lube's really only chances if they get good Ivan Zaitsev and if they can really, really run Simone in the middle. But I don't see them having the longevity and just the consistency on offense to be able to do that against Perugia. I think that there's no way that Perugia has the bad offensive days that Trentino had that Lube was able to take advantage of. Also, Perugia is a much better passing team than Trentino is. My pick here is Perugia. I'll go with 3-1. I'll give Lube a match, but I won't give him more.
Okay. To be honest, I don't know if Perugia's blocking was so key in their series against Modena, right? I think we're going to see that break down completely, especially the way that DiCecco was running that offense the last 3 games. He wasn't as aggressive in Game 5 with his setting in terms of the speed of it all. He was adding a little bit more loop to his sets, and they slowed it down a little bit, but hey, they still won the game and ultimately still moved on, right? So, no harm, no foul there. So I think that we're going to see Perugia struggle a little bit, right? They really rely on their block, and when their block is solid, the rest of their game is solid, and I don't see them being able to be as solid in this one. You did mention that Soleil, you brought up a good point that Soleil is probably the guy who knows DiCecco the best, and I will think that I do think that dynamic is going to be interesting, but I guess we'll see. What I really like about this game, though, is that last year we were kind of overflowed with Lube versus Perugia. Like we saw it in Champions League, and we saw it in the Italian Cup. Like we saw it so many times. We saw it in big matches during the regular season. Whereas, that last matchup between Lube and Perugia didn't mean anything.
No, it was the last game of the regular season.
It was the last game of the regular season. Everything was already done. Both teams had injuries and stuff like that. So really, realistically, we only had one Lube versus Perugia this year. So It's fantastic in my book that they're coming together in the finals this way, and they really haven't played each other. So there's so much on the line to be able to kind of prove to, wrap up what is going to be this rivalry. So it's going to be interesting to see how either team approaches that.
Because there's going to be a lot of adjustment in that matchup throughout the series because they haven't played each other in meaningful matches that much. Conversely, if it had been Perugia versus Trentino in the finals, they would have played themselves a double-digit number of times this year. which would have made for a completely different series because of the familiarity. So yeah, I expect to see a lot of moving parts. The coaching matchup between Lube and Perugia is going to be very interesting because of the adjustments and the data collection and the scouting and all that's going to be going on. It's going to be paradise for us, like super high level volleyball nerds, to watch. And all starts tomorrow. But I think we got to move on from this series and talk about a couple more things before we wrap up.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so Italian women's. This is another thing that happened on Wednesday. The last game of the semifinal series between Monza and Novara got underway, and it was another banger in Novara. Novara went up 2-0, 26-24, 25-21. Monza came back with the reverse sweep. Ouch. There's really my initial impressions from this, and I had it on, although I admit I was paying more attention to the two Italian men's semifinals.
There's too much going on.
I'm still furious that there are the three best matches of the year were all going on at the exact same time.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't say this any other way than this is a choke by Novara.
100%.
This is an absolute collapse by Novara. They almost got reverse swept in match number 1 at home. They went up 2-0. Monza came back to force the 5th, but Novara was able to turn it around in the 5th. They looked terrible on the road at Monza the other day, and then they get reverse swept at home to get eliminated from the playoffs. That you can't put this any other way than that they choked in this series.
Yeah, and I mean, the numbers look good for Novara. 30 points there for
okay.
Dalderot and Washington. Like Washington, 7 blocks in this one.
That was incredible.
Just outstanding. But yeah, absolutely. But oh man, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players on the Monza side in double digits in this one. Right? Like they're just using the entirety of their roster from, all of their left sides, all of their right side,
including both opposites.
Sink.
Both opposites in double digits in scoring. This might have been finally the time when Gaspari figured out the balance of what opposites to play when, because he started Magdalena Stisiak. She was fine, not great. Brought in Lise von Hecke, that started the reverse sweep, and then put Stisiak back in the 5th when it mattered, and it worked. Alessia Gennari, pretty good. Von Hecke, okay offensively. Anna Danesi, really good. Dana Retke, 15 attempts.
Jordan Larson.
Three aces and 3 blocks. Jordan Larson, this, no, not good at all. Yeah, 11 for 42. And that's clearly uncharacteristic for her. The fact that Monza was still able to win this with those sort of inefficient numbers tells me that this is a choke from Novara. The number I do want to point out, because in general, Novara's numbers in the stat sheet look better, is errors. I've talked about Novara this year. They should be a cleaner team. They've beaten a lot of teams just by not giving points away. Mm-hmm. And in the sets against Monza in this series that they won, they didn't give points away. But later on in that match, they started to spray the ball out of bounds. 10 attacking errors plus blocked 10 times, 17 serving errors.
To me, it's the serving errors, because if you look on the attacking side, Monza actually makes more errors overall. They have 21 errors compared to Novara's 20.
They got blocked 16 times, 16 blocks versus only 5 true unforced errors, balls hit out of bounds. This is the first time ever that I like seeing those two things separated, like balls hit out of bounds versus balls blocked, because only committing 5 unforced hitting errors in an entire match is very, very good, even though you got blocked a bunch of times. And then ace to error ratio 6 to 12 for Monza is excellent. 1 to 17 for Novara is hot garbage. So it's the errors, because everything else for Novara was fine. They passed the ball better than Monza. Their attacking efficiency, or their team kill percentage, identical to Monza. Their team efficiency, very, very similar to Monza. They blocked the ball better than Monza, but they made too many errors. And you just can't do that when that's part of the identity of your team, is to not give points away.
Yeah, to me, Novara in this one, and I think Novara in general, after watching them for the past few seasons, that they just hold the stick a little too tight. I mean, that's a hockey term for when you're really nervous. The pass comes to you and you're just holding too tight. The puck just bounces off, right? And that's the way it seems to be when Novara gets into that gut check. Or even if I go back to last season when they were coming up to play Conegliano in the finals, they just seemed to be scared.
Right. They knew that they couldn't do that.
Right.
They knew
it seems that they shy away from those big moments when it's theirs for the taking. They do really well when they're the underdog, right? Like if we look back to the win against Conegliano earlier this season, when they're the underdog and they're not expected to win, then they have no pressure. But when the pressure is there and when they're that team that's expected to win, they kind of crumble. And I don't know what that comes down to. Generally, I usually attribute the kind of that type of characteristic to the team to their setter. Just
I
like
agree.
a football, just like a quarterback in football, your team is going to live and die by the emotional state of your quarterback. I 100% think it's the same thing in volleyball, where you're going to live and die by the emotional state of your setter. So for me, that's maybe a question of, is Misha Hancock running this team properly? Is she running in a good offense? I'm not making any accusations here. I don't really know. I haven't watched enough, and unfortunately, the women aren't on volumetrics, so I can't watch them from the baseline and really get a good sense. But it's definitely a question to me of either the setter running this team, the leadership of the team, or the general coaching staff for Novara to choke the way they do. I mean, if we go back to the match against Dynamo Moscow in Champions League,
that was a choke too. We've
that was
talked
another
about it a
choke,
lot
exactly.
this season. Yeah, I agree. I think at least some of the blame has to fall on Micah Hancock here, but Novara is due for some serious shakeups this offseason. It sounds like Jordan Poulter is going to come in and set that team, and I think we have to consider that an upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
But sure enough, like Novara is done, Monza moving on to the finals. Before we move off this, do they have a chance? Does Monza have a chance against Conegliano? I do not think so. I think this is 3-0. I don't think Monza gets a single win in that final series.
I think they have a chance because you have a lot of people who believe that they have a chance. Like, I think Jordan Larson is always going to believe that like she can win, and that's just part of her ethos. I think it's part of like the American thing is you guys always think you're the best and always going to be think that you're going to win, for better or for worse.
I mean, hardware. How can you argue with Jordan Larson?
100%, right? I fully agree, right? I do think that this Monza team is more battle tested than the last time that they faced Conegliano, right? Last time when they saw
they
Conegliano,
got embarrassed by them in Champions League.
Exactly, they got embarrassed by
Conegliano
in Champions League, but Jordan Larson was brand new to the team. Like, she had only been around for a couple of weeks. Now she's been there, and she's been there, and she knows how things work. But they're going to need a much better performance out of her than we saw in this one. 11 for 42 isn't good enough. Doesn't matter if you're the Olympic MVP or whatever. You need to be doing better. So if Monza can figure that out, if they can put pressure on Conegliano with their serve, and if they can pass well to be able to release their middle, I think they have a chance. Ultimately, I'm going to pick Conegliano on this one. I think I'm probably going to go Conegliano 3-1. I'll give Monza at least one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Monza pushed it and even maybe pulled off a JW from last year.
Yeah, I do not see that happening at all. I got to interview Paola Egoni last week, which was just awesome, and she was excited to watch that game 3 we were just talking about. Her, I can tell you for sure, her confidence is extremely high in her team right now. I don't think there's any way that they lose this final. And to wrap up Paola Egoni's time there, it'll be a good way to kind of put a bow on that in Italy before the Vakif showdown in Champions League. But that's I think already too much time we spent talking about that. Two more things before we wrap up the show. One, later today, the Bundesliga Game 5. Sure enough, the Berlin Recycling Volleys go down 2-0 against Friedrichshafen. They win at home 3-0. They go on the road on Wednesday, win it 3-1. Actually, all 4 sets very, very tight. They play at home today, 12:30, so like 45 minutes from right now, Eastern time, at home in Berlin. There's no way Berlin doesn't win this series, if you ask me. No way.
We talked about it last week, and I said if Friedrichshafen's going to win the series, they're going to win it at home on Wednesday. They failed to do that, and didn't they go up? Wasn't it a reverse sweep for Berlin in this one?
In the series, yes. If Berlin pulls it off today, it will be a reverse sweep in the series, which is crazy. So tune in on twitch.tv/Spontent for it's the championship match. This is it.
This is what it comes down to.
This is it. So yeah, tune into that. I want to make sure their viewership numbers are nice and high because they deserve it. Great broadcast, and I mean, this is it. It's a championship match. We don't really get very many of those in volleyball. So in like series like this, so that's cool. Tune into that. And then last but not least, Poland. Zaksa is going back to the finals. They beat Zawiercie this morning. Got up and watched the match. Zawiercie came out to play in the first. They took it 25-19, but Zaksa, with 2 very notable additions off the bench, turned it around and convincingly destroyed them in sets 2 through 4. Got to give Krzysztof Reno in the middle a ton of credit, and a backup outside hitter for Zaksa that I had never seen before, Wojciech Zalinski,
Yeah.
number 21, came in for Alexander Schlifka, who started off with negative efficiency and only went 8 for 11 attacking, just a casual 64% efficiency for a backup outside hitter. Kamil Semeniuk was awesome, well-deserved MVP. Sure enough, Zaksa figured it out after dropping that first match. They're going back to the finals. And I think even as hot as JW has been lately, Zaksa is still my pick to win the Plusliga.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it in this one too. Like, if Zaksa comes to play, they're gonna run through you. Like that first set was 25, like 14, or sorry, that's third set, and then in the fourth, they just started running away with it. My favorite too is Richie calls a timeout down 9-2 in the fourth, and
as if that's going to do anything.
and their coach just is like, hey guys, we go point by point, right? We're doing this 1 point at a time, and like even when they're dialed in with 2 bench guys on the bench like that, and that team is still able to produce the same type of result without Slivka and without David Smith. So yeah, I think Zox is looking really good coming into this Plusliga final. And then, I mean, it's a little bit different from last year because they have the finals before the Champions League. Last year it was the other way around. They had the Champions League where they won and then kind of just like fell asleep in the finals against JW. So I do think that they're going to be able to just run through this. And if they win this final too, they're probably my pick to win the Champions League as well.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that, with what's happened with both Zaksa and Trentino the last week or so. That's really changed both of our opinions on them going into Champions League. And we'll break that down a lot more the next couple of weeks. But we got the finals coming up. So tune into Berlin versus Friedrichshafen today, Lube versus Perugia starting tomorrow. I think the Polish final will probably start Tuesday or Wednesday of this coming week.
Yeah, probably.
We'll break it all down on the normal Tuesday night show of the 9x9, and also turn into VLA this weekend, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern today, and tomorrow I'll be live on the VLA YouTube channel from Boston. So
what's the first game for VLA today?
LVC versus Bounce. It's my pick for the best East Division matchup. 2 teams are very, very good. LVC's roster this weekend is good. They have a chance to win the division this weekend, so going to be some good ball play. Tune into that.
Yeah. Also tomorrow at noon, Perugia versus Lube gets us kicked off, so should be a good one. All right, Rob, thanks for tuning in. Enjoy VLA, guys. Make sure to join the Discord. The details are down in the show notes if you want to watch volleyball with us, and check out our back to our normal scheduled time on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks a lot. Peace.